What's up, y'all? Today, we talking about when you are unequally yoked with someone, this will always happen, all right? Yes, we talking about being unequally yoked and what happens when you're with someone that you're unequally yoked with. I think a lot of times we can't recognize it. I think a lot of times people think just because you're a Christian and they're a Christian, that means that you're equally yoked. No, it does not. I want you to understand that. And I remember one of the pastors that I love said, you can be two Christians in a relationship, but not in a Christian relationship. You understand what I'm saying? So it's two Christians in a relationship, but that don't mean that you're in a godly relationship. That don't mean that it's a Christian relationship. Y'all are unequally yoked, right? And y'all already know the saying or the analogy or the picture of an ox and two oxen going different ways, or an ox and a donkey and they're going nowhere, right? Unequally yoked, they're going nowhere. Or one is trying to go this way and one is staying. Like you're not moving. You're unequally yoked. You're not going in the same direction. You consistently have confrontation with one another. You consistently fight one another, right? So now when it comes to this unequally yoked thing, man, I always tell people, because there's a lot of people that say to me, hey man, why don't you talk to this person, or why don't you talk to this person? But I've learned that through discernment and God showing me his spirit and helping me to recognize his spirit, I can understand that sometimes just because somebody's a Christian don't mean that we would be good together. You understand what I'm saying? That does not mean that we are in the same place. Example, here's an example of being unequally yoked. A new believer. And I want y'all to hear me. Please hear what I'm saying. Don't be over there, well, it doesn't matter. Just listen to what I'm saying, please. Hear what I'm saying and try to understand. Imagine being with a new believer, right? And you are not a new believer. And I don't mean that you just read your Bible and go to church, but you really a believer or a follower of Christ that's really trying to walk out this walk. But you got somebody who is just outside and now they're trying to come inside, right? So they're a new believer. They're a Christian now. But you know where the issue would be? Is because they may not fully understand things yet, but you do, right? I always tell people, because people always say to me, to try to talk to this person, I could tell that this person may not be that way by how they are, by the things that they're doing, by how they may communicate, and just their understanding, right? I can see their spirit and how they are. They may not be where I am, right? I'm not in the club. I don't drink, right? I am not having sex. I'm not out here trying to hurt people. I'm not trying to be sarcastic and passive aggressive and get under people's skin. I'm not over here struggling with friends that's doing bad things, and I'm still doing the things with them and going places with them. And you understand, I'm just not in that place. But if I have someone who is a new believer, someone who doesn't understand the truth of God, someone who still may be struggling a little bit, but they over here trying to walk that walk, right? I could help. I could be a friend. But just imagine us being together. Imagine y'all being together, right? When you're trying to fill them with the truth or trying to point them in the right direction, like, hey, I think, how God would want us to do this. Or when you're like, hey, trying to point them back to God, like, hey, I think God would want us to do this way. Or God would want us to do things this way. Or God would want us to forgive. Or God would want us to be understanding. Or God doesn't want us having sex. Or maybe it's probably not good that we dress like this or be like this. Or maybe we're doing too much with one another while we're not in a relationship. This person may not understand that. You understand what I'm saying? They may not understand these things because they're still struggling in that area. Or they haven't gained the strength in that area. They may not understand how I have to look at people and be kind to them, right? Because you both are supposed to be going the same direction. And that does not mean that they got to be perfect. But a person has to be willing. They have to have the Spirit of God in them. They have to be walking this way. They don't got to be perfect, but they got to be walking this way. Not over here on the fence, like, nah, I don't know about that, or I can't do that, but I love Jesus. I love God. You understand what I'm saying? Someone who is in a place like that is like a baby, and you're an adult. So imagine an adult being in a relationship with a baby. For one, they can't understand anything you're saying. They can't recognize what you're saying, and they only take milk at this moment. That's all they can devour when you're over here eating baby food. So imagine you trying to give this baby solid food, and you're taking solid food. So imagine you trying to give this baby solid food. You want the baby, or you want this person that you're with to be able to feed you too, to be able to help you too, to be able to love you too, to be able to go to God like you go to God, to be able to point you back to God the same way. You don't want to be the only one who understands these things. You know what kind of conflict, what kind of friction, what kind of issues you would go through with this person? That means you are both unequally yoked. You are not yoked together. You both do not understand yet. Remember, the disciples had to be one. They had to be one-minded. Notice Jesus came, he taught them because they weren't ready yet. And then when he left, he sent them out because they was ready. That means they didn't fully understand yet. And y'all might say, well, no, they didn't. Yes, they did understand. No, they didn't. Remember, Jesus asked, who do they say I am? Then he asked, who do you say I am? And you got to remember, they kept saying, who is this man? How does he command the wind to be calm and the storm to be calm? They were still experiencing and learning who he was. You understand? And they was trying to walk in faith at that moment, but they wasn't fully. And of course, we all not perfect, and we're not going to be fully there all the time. But remember, they recognized who he was fully eventually, and then they was willing to die for him. It won't know who is this man. It won't know how does he do this. After time, they knew who he was. After time, they knew how he did it. They wasn't giving up. They was willing to die for him, right? But imagine being with someone who is not like that, who does not understand. You cannot be a grown adult, spiritually mature, with someone who is spiritually immature. Not saying in a bad way, but they just don't understand yet. They don't have the growth. They can't feed you. Imagine being in a relationship with someone that you only feed. That's like being in a relationship with someone that you are the only one loving them, and they can't do it back because they are still at a level where they got to learn to forgive, right? Where they have to, and when I say learn, again, y'all, that does not mean that we don't still learn, because I know how y'all are. Just hear me, man. I love y'all, man. I'm trying to make an explanation. I'm trying to make an analogy. I'm trying to, you know what I'm saying? But look, just imagine being with someone like that. When you want them to be understanding, when you want them to listen when you speak, when you want them to help you in areas that you're weak, when you want them to point you back to God, when you want them to go to God, when you want them to help you remember to pray, when you want them to help you also to remember how to love and to even teach you how to love. How are they supposed to do that when they are at this different level? You understand? When their mind is not fully there, right? Because we also got some Christians that's just not wanting to grow yet. Their mind, they're still struggling. They might have one foot in, one foot out. You feel what I'm saying? They're still on that side. They're still struggling with the world, right? Do you want to be with someone like that? That's unequally yoked, y'all. That is an unequally yoked Christian relationship. Y'all are both Christians, but it's not walking in the same way towards God. Someone may not be there yet. And I know some people might be like, but y'all understand, a lot of us, we have to grow. And Paul talks about babies in Christ and mature believers. There is a such thing. You understand what I'm saying? There is a such thing. This is a very true thing. It's real and it really happens. But when you grow, when you have discernment, when you recognize, when you are stronger, you can recognize someone who has grown. You can recognize someone who has this relationship with God. And when I say relationship, I always tell people, if you want to realize that somebody has a relationship, you don't just look at their daily devotion and them going to church and them reading their Bible and watching sermons. That does not equate to a relationship. That is a part of it. But relationship, you can see that they have a relationship with God, that they struggled with God, that they went through things with God, right? This is why when you look in the Bible, you can see the relationship with David. You can see what he went through. You can see how he speaks about God, how he runs to God, how he chooses God when he could have killed the man and he chose not to. How he was down and out, but he still believed. How he called on God, how he sweat blood and tears for God. You can see what he talked about, how he went through these things with God when it was hard and when it was good. That's a relationship. You can see it with Abraham, the good, the bad, and the ugly, not just going to church and going to the synagogue and reading the Bible. You can tell a person's relationship. That's why these stories are in the Bible. You can tell Paul had a relationship because he went through the pain. He was killing people, and then he was saved, and then he went out to try to bless so many people and pull them to God. You can see the pain and agony he had to go through, and how he talked about it, and how he was so passionate about his relationship with God. Can you see that person's relationship with God yet? Not just how they were saved, not just how they go to church on Sunday, not just how they just read their Bible, but can you see the relationship? You understand? You know your relationship. You know how you so quick to call somebody like, yeah, they did this to me, they did that to me. And you know how you can call, oh my God, they made me feel so good today. Oh my God, I'm so glad. And we talked so much, and that person was there for me when that happened, or that person didn't listen to me. You can hear the relationship that they have or that they're going through. So that's what we have to look for. Let's not be unequally yoked. Let's ask God for discernment, y'all. Here's another thing that you can understand that somebody's not there yet, that you're unequally yoked with somebody. Look, as Christians, we have this relationship with God where we have boundaries. As soon as I get into a relationship with God, I have to stop doing things, right? I can't do everything that I wanted to do anymore. I can't, right? Again, I can't go to the club like that. I can't be doing all of these things that pulled me to. I can't be drinking. I can't be smoking. I can't be having sex. I can't be treating people wrong. I can't be in the world. I can't be in the middle of the world trying to follow God. You understand? I can't be doing what the world does and trying to do what God told me to do at the same time. So I have these boundaries around me. I have a hedge of protection around me, and that includes what I do. Because God loves me, so he has to protect the relationship that we have. Now, let me tell you how you can recognize certain things to see that somebody is unequally yoked in this type of situation. Imagine getting into a relationship with someone and you trying to create boundaries, right? Because I always tell people, a woman that doesn't know Jesus is going to hate me. Like, she's going to be mad, right? Because if you don't know Jesus like that, then you won't know Jesus in me. You won't see Jesus in me at all, right? You're going to be mad. You're probably going to think that I'm controlling. You're probably going to think that I'm lame. You're probably going to think that I'm manipulative because I don't live this life of freedom, just doing whatever I want. Because now that I'm with God, I can't do what I want. But I always tell people, if I get into a relationship with God, I can't do what I want anymore. So whoever I get into a relationship with, I have to protect that relationship as well, because my boundaries that I created with God has now come into relationship with someone else. I don't just turn off my boundaries because I'm in a relationship with someone else, and I don't just let them do what they want because they're in a relationship with me, right? If I do that, that's foolish. That's showing that person that I don't care, and that's me compromising my relationship and what I learned with God. So that person will get upset because they don't understand that you have to have boundaries. You know, the world calls, if you ever have a boundary, right? And you say, nah, I can't do this, or we can't do this. People feel like, oh, now they're being controlling. See, I tell people a lot of times, I need to pay attention to this controlling thing. A lot of times it's an illusion. Pay attention. Because God, even God, when God said, don't eat that fruit or you will die. Don't eat from that tree or you will die. Right? He was saying, stay away from that or you will die. The cost of that is the wage of death. Now listen to what I said. God said, don't eat from that tree or you will die. He created a boundary, a head of protection because he loved you, right? And he wanted to keep you in a relationship with him. But notice the words. He told you not to do something. He didn't ask you. And then he told you something bad would happen if you did, right? The enemy, on the other hand, said, no, God knows that you will know what he knows if you eat this, right? He said you could do what you want to do and you would get something good from it. He made you feel good to do whatever you wanted to do. And God said, this bad thing will happen if you do what you want. You can't do what you want, or an issue will happen, or you will not live the way that I need you to live. You will not feel the way I need you to feel. You would not be close. You will cut off connection to me with what you're doing. And you will hinder your life and put yourself in a threatening situation because you're going outside of this protection, outside of this boundary, outside of these standards. So again, I, as a believer, get into a relationship. I understand God has boundaries and standards because he loves me. He wants to protect me. He wants to keep me from the enemy, all these things. I get into a relationship with someone, it has to be the same way, right? I love you. So we create boundaries. We create standards because I love you, and we got to stay in God's covenant, and we got to keep the enemy out. Anyone who does not understand that is going to call you controlling, is going to call you manipulative, is going to call you all of these things. This is why you as a believer got to be careful to understand that this person has to see God in you, because if they don't know God, right, then they're going to think, I should be able to do whatever I want to do. No, I can't do whatever I want to do in relationship with God, and I shouldn't be able to do whatever I want to do in a relationship with you. I got to protect myself outside so that I can keep this relationship. This is a marriage mind. This is literally how you're supposed to be marriage minded, right? I know not to be talking to my ex when I'm in a relationship. So if I can do whatever I want, then I can talk to my ex. But y'all, a lot of people think you shouldn't be doing that at all. But you never established the boundary. You just thought it. And now you got an issue because you just thought it was supposed to happen, but you didn't communicate it. You both didn't come to common ground. You both didn't establish this boundary and standard. So if you have somebody like that, they won't see you as a good person, just like the world didn't see Jesus as a good person. He came into the world with these boundaries, right? And they got mad at him. They thought he was a criminal. They put him on a cross. So anyone that we come into contact with and we try to be this godly way, they're going to see us the same way. If they don't know God, they don't know Jesus, they don't know us. They won't see us. They will see us the exact same way as the world saw Jesus. This is how you can also tell someone is unequally yoked and may not be that close to God. You both will always be enemies in a situation like that. You will always go against each other. It will always be a fight. Jesus said for us to be in understanding of one another, right? To be at peace, to go in the same way, to have one mind. That's not one mind. That's unequally yoked. That's two different minds. That's a person with a different mindset choosing to go a different way. And I know y'all might say, well, the person got a good heart. I was just telling my brother this the other day. I said, yo, bro, I said, this girl can have a good heart. Yeah, that's good. But her mind might not be on Christ. So just because somebody has a good heart does not mean that they are godly. Does not mean that you can establish a godly relationship with this person. So we need to make sure that we are going the same way, that these people recognize Jesus and they recognize Jesus in us, right? We don't do what we want once we get into a relationship with God. He got us in his sheep herd. He's a shepherd, keeping us away from the wolves. There's something protecting us that we got to stay inside of. And if we go outside of it to do what we want, to feel like we're free, the enemy could catch us slipping. So we can't do that in our relationships as well. That's how we follow God inside of a relationship. So this is actually what happens every single time. And this will always happen when you are unequally yoked with somebody. For some reason, y'all can't stop butting heads. Y'all both think totally different, y'all. One may be thinking about God. One may not truly understand it. And that's okay. It's no need for us to judge that person. I think when we have a better understanding of God, then we get to see that, because if we don't, then we're going to get mad. Because I used to get mad. I ain't going to lie. I was in a relationship where the girl was never convicted about anything. Like, she was mad selfish. She was never convicted, always thinking about herself, never wanting to correct herself. And I ain't just talking about towards me, but towards other people. I would tell her, like, yo, I don't think that was, like, why are you talking to that person like that? Or why can't you, you know what I'm saying? Like, let's try to talk to people in this way, because that's how good things happen. That's how this person will want to help you, not because you demanding it, not because you treating them like they're not going to want to help you. And she would act like ain't nothing wrong. Like, what are you talking about? I'm not doing anything. And I'm like, and that would drive me crazy. But now that I realize she doesn't know, she doesn't understand. So when I'm saying these things to her, it's crazy to her, because she thinks this is the way. And that's okay, because I understand this is how you grew up, or this is what you believe. But on the other hand, I believe what God tells me, and I know it is a fact. It's true. So do we want to keep, and I mean going into relationships with people like this? Because once we married, hey, I don't believe in, I don't talk about divorce. God don't want us to get divorced. I know it's situations where we can, but I will never encourage divorce. I can't, because that would be going against God, right? But again, y'all, let's make sure that we good out here. Let's make sure that we recognize before we go into, how can I recognize if this is a godly relationship or a godly person? You don't want to be pulling people or trying to pull someone who doesn't want to go that way, because what do you think is going to happen inside the relationship? You cannot make this person change. They have to want the change. They have to want to follow God in his way, to understand God. They have to know God so that they can see God in you. And for fellas, if you're a man, you're supposed to be a leader. So you want her to see God, or else how's she going to be submissive? How's she going to listen to you when her mind is on the world? She has to know God, because if she knows God, then she'll see God in you. She'll submit because she sees God. But if she don't know God, how's she supposed to do that? And ladies, how he supposed to lead you to God? How he supposed to lead you in love if he don't know the one who is love? If he don't know where to get love? It's going to be a fight. It's going to always be a fight with the flesh, with the world, and with the spirit, with God. Always. So let's make sure we recognize this when making our decisions of who to be with. It got to be God first. And we got to recognize who is God, so we'll know how to see God in others, and we'll know if they see God in us or not. All right? Hope this video helped y'all. I'm going to get at y'all when I get at y'all.